This is the World Organic News Podcast for the week ending the 6th of June 2016. John Moore reporting. This week we begin with slugs. It's that time of the year in many parts of the Northern Hemisphere, slug time. The blog Autoimmune Odyssey has an interesting post on slug traps. Used citrus-based slug traps amongst the strawberry plants, to be precise. Quartered oranges left out overnight attract these little nuisances. In the morning the slugs are removed and the citrus pieces moved to another area of the garden. There are a number of variations to this idea of drawing slugs and snails too, to things other than the precious food plants. More on that later. The blog An Edible Life also has a piece on slug control. Looking around for solutions, they've tried chamomile lawn and only watering in the morning, but this didn't work. They are now trying cardboard rolls wrapped in copper foil. This seems like a winner, if a little on the expensive side, especially when the number of crops in their area starts to ramp up. The blog Ramshackle Avenue also has a piece on slugs and snails. They have devised a sacrificial aubergine as a lure for these slug issues. Aubergines, for those of you outside of the UK and France, are what we all call eggplants. This sacrificial plant idea makes some sense. In the same way sweet corn can be protected from cockatoos here in Australia by surrounding the patch with taller growing sacrificial sorghum, so tasty sacrificial vegetables around the crops you want to survive may well work. But then again, slugs can blitzkrieg through most anything when they are ready to go. Then the blog Craft and Other Crazy Plants has a post from the slug's point of view, and the attempts to control it, that is, kill it. The natural methods and the pelleted chemical ones as well are explored. The post ends with the slug still quite well and alive. The main point to take from this is a vegetable garden is the perfect home for a slug. Food laid on, protection from birds and so on. In my own experience, there are only 4 truly effective ways of dealing with slugs. 1. Drought. This is, I admit, extreme and not much good for anything else, but the dry weather does stop the slugs. 2. Handpicking the little buggers off the vegetables. This has its limitations. A kitchen garden can even be too big for this method. If you're growing 20 acres of lettuce, forget this unless you have extremely cheap labour. 3. Poultry. This is best achieved with ducks, but geese or chickens work well too. It takes some management, as the birds also predate upon the lettuce and other veggies if they are left on the gardens too long. They will, however, preferentially attack and consume the slugs first. Perhaps a little damage from the birds versus complete loss to slugs seems a fair outcome. And 4. Beer. Saucers, empty jam jars, or even buckets half filled with beer seems to draw slugs and snails too to their doom. Check the traps every morning, remove the deceased creatures and either compost or toss them to the poultry. Marinated slugs and snails are consumed as quickly as those taken on the hoof in method 3. So try these ideas. If anyone has other suggestions, I'd love to hear them. My email address is in the show notes. And now a note from our sponsor. This episode of the World Organic News Podcast is brought to you by Gem Biscuits. Gem Biscuits is a small family-run enterprise who make gluten-free sorghum flour-based biscuits and cookies. Choc chip, hazelnut choc chip, coffee hazelnut choc chip and the original spicy tea biscuit. All these are made with, of course, organic ingredients. These biscuits are great, gluten-free, but you'd never know from the taste. Please check out the website gembiscuits.com. That's gembiscuits.com. A link is in the show notes. Now we move on to a strawberry propagation update from Freedom Farm TV. The folks over at Freedom Farm TV have a great site. Well-written posts, wonderful videos, great pics, and they're permaculture practitioners. This post has a great video on the gentle art of strawberry prop. There is a permaculture concept of making do with what you have, so propagation is a key skill to learn. And this video is a good place to start if you've never done any prop before. Beware though, propagation is addictive. And now a little taste of Masanobu Fukuoka, author of The One Straw Revolution, the next in our series for those who have contributed to the organic way. I'm going to have a fairly lengthy quote, but I think it's worth it. It helps understand where this man's coming from. Quote, I do not particularly like the word work. Human beings are the only animals who have to work, and I think that this is the most ridiculous thing in the world. Other animals make their living by living, but people work like crazy, thinking that they have to in order to stay alive. The bigger the job, the greater the challenge, the more wonderful they think it is. It would be good to give up that way of thinking and live an easy, comfortable life with lots of free time. I think that the way animals live in the tropics, stepping outside in the morning and evening to see if there's something to eat, and taking a long nap in the afternoon must be a wonderful life. For human beings, a life of such simplicity would be possible if one worked to produce directly his daily necessities. In such a life, work is not work as people generally think of it, but simply doing what needs to be done, end quote. I think you can see from this quote we're going to have some fun times with the One Straw Revolution. And that brings us to the end of this week's podcast. If you've liked what you've heard, I'd really appreciate a review on iTunes. This helps others find us. Thanking you in advance. Any suggestions, feedback or criticisms are most welcome. Email me at podcast@worldorganicnews.com. A transcript of each episode is available on the blog at www.worldorganicnews.com under the tab Podcasts. Thanks for listening. I'll be back in a week.